Right now at 6, the family of Celeste Rivas in the courtroom as graphic evidence in her murder investigation was presented before them, why prosecutors say singer David should go to trial for murder.
NBC4 News at 6 starts with breaking news.
We begin here at 6 o'clock with the gut-wrenching details revealed during the preliminary hearing for the murder case involving the pop singer known as David. We want to thank you for joining us here at 6. I'm Jonathan Gonzalez.
And I'm Annabelle Sedano. Colleen and Michael are off tonight. David is now facing sexual abuse and murder charges in the death of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez. Prosecutors are presenting a summary of the evidence in the case to show the judge there is enough evidence for a jury trial.
Investigative reporter Eric Leonard has been in the courtroom today. He joins us live now, and we should warn you, some of the descriptions from court are graphic. Eric.
It's very difficult for any of us to imagine what Celeste Rivas Hernandez's parents went through today as they sat in court and listened to a detective testify on the witness stand while showing photos about the way that their daughter's body was discovered at that tow yard in Hollywood, the condition of her remains, and the beginning stages of this investigation. Prosecutors today really focused on those first few days of the investigation. What detectives found, the clues, they say, even in those first hours began to point them towards the singer known as David and the home he was living in the Hollywood Hills. These sketches from court show David, whose legal name is David Burke, sitting in the 9th floor courtroom today as prosecutors showed photos of the way 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez was discovered, dismembered in an advanced state of decomposition. Rivas Hernandez's parents sat in the front row. Deputy District Attorney Beth Silverman turned around and warned them about what was about to be shown, and at one point suggested they put their heads down. Celeste was found last September in the front trunk of a black Tesla in Hollywood. The car, of course, registered to David Burke. And these photos, just part of the presentation of evidence where the prosecution is demonstrating to the judge that there's enough here for the case to go to a jury trial. An LAPD detective on the witness stand for much of the day recounting how multiple clues pointed immediately towards Burke. Among them, electronic data that shows Burke was the last person to drive his Tesla on July 29th, 2025. That was about a month before Celeste was found. Then search warrants led to online purchase records that the detective says shows Burke bought 3 chainsaws, a shovel, a body bag, and an incinerator all around the time Rivas Hernandez disappeared. Photos of these items were shown in court. The detective explained how some of the equipment was delivered by Amazon, DoorDash, and Postmates. No blood was found on those saws. It turns out they weren't tested for DNA. Earlier, an LA County Sheriff's deputy testified about a welfare check that he was sent to in a home in West Hollywood where Burke was staying. The home was searched for Celeste. She wasn't there. But at one point, body-worn video captured Burke saying that Rivas Hernandez had told him she was 18 years old, and then he learned she was 13 years old. And key to the prosecution's presentation here, they say at the time of the recording, Burke was already involved in an intimate relationship with the teen. On the witness stand this afternoon, a music industry financial executive who managed part of Burke's financial empire. The reason he was on the stand is that prosecutors are trying to show that there's evidence to prove that David, the singer, stood to lose potentially millions of dollars if he became an accused sex offender, which is what they say Rivas Hernandez was threatening to do in text messages. This goes to the potential motive of the case. The music executive said Burke had earned somewhere between $10 and $11 million at the time that Rivas's body was found. Preliminary hearings are usually short. This one's expected to go on for a couple more days. Live at criminal courts downtown, I'm investigative reporter Eric Leonard, NBC4 News. Back to you.
And Eric, what more can we expect moving forward during the week in this hearing?
Well, there's a lot more to this investigation beyond the discovery of the remains, which we heard a lot about today, and some of those initial electronic clues that pointed towards Burke, at least according to the police department. There's a lot more forensic work that was done to learn how Celeste died, the mechanisms, what they were able to learn about how she wound up in that Tesla, and some of the other things that happened that the police are saying amount to a solid murder case. Plus, there's a lot of stuff about the relationship between Burke and Rivas, we should say the alleged relationship here, that prosecutors plan to call another detective to testify about probably as soon as tomorrow.
So for more context, let's bring in our legal analyst, Royal Oakes. Royal, again, thank you so much for joining us.
Sure.
So through Eric Leonard, who's in the courtroom, we've been told testimony is being heard and disturbing evidence has been revealed. What does a judge need to hear to agree to a trial at this point?
Judge doesn't need to hear too much. Probable cause at a preliminary hearing will result in the almost inevitable decision to go to trial. And of course, the prosecution, they're not burying the lead, and that would be her body was found in Burke's car. Now, there's also the classic indicators connected with murder: motive, opportunity, means. The motive allegedly was she said to him, look, if you're not exclusive to me with our sexual relationship, I will blow the whistle and your career will be over. Opportunity, he allegedly set a car for her to come to his house to talk about things. And the means, he went online using a fake name, buying a chainsaw and an inflatable pool to help with the killing and the dismemberment. So all of these things are going to be presented this week by the DA.
Yeah, which is why you bring that up, Royal, which is why the DA is opening the door for a possible death penalty here.
That's right. They have said they may seek the death penalty. And you might say, well, what are you talking about? This is California. We don't execute people. Governor Newsom has turned San Quentin into a rehabilitation center. But the fact of the matter is we don't know what the next governor will feel about the capital punishment issue. And DA Hochman says that that is on the table. And when you look at the issues that could trigger capital punishment, silencing a witness, financial benefit, Burke was looking at millions of dollars every year in his career that would have ended if she had blown the whistle on him.
Well, his lawyer had asked the judge for an order to unshackle him for the proceedings. That didn't happen. Why do you think the judge denied that?
You know, it's a tough call. If you're at trial, then you are not shackled. You can wear a nice dress suit. You don't want to appear in a jumpsuit because courts have said that violates the presumption of innocence. But this isn't a trial. This is a preliminary hearing. Now, usually you have restraints if somebody maybe is crazy violent or they're planning an escape. I doubt the judge has any evidence of those things. But in general, if capital punishment is involved, why take any chances? I think that was the judge's attitude toward imposing the restraints.
So as far as the defense, they're hearing some gruesome evidence here. What's their strategy likely to be?
Yeah, it's a tough call here. I mean, you want to put your best foot forward, but the defense knows it's almost certain that they're going to have to go to trial. So why would you tip your hand and show a lot of information that might surprise the prosecution at trial? Bottom line is I think the defense wants to push the mantra. Just because somebody's body is found in your car doesn't mean you did it. Where's the eyewitness testimony? Where's the DNA? Where are the fingerprints? Who knows what kind of crazy things could have happened? Maybe Burke has an alibi. Perhaps somebody did it for him. Somebody's framing him. That's the reasonable doubt kind of attitude that the defense is going to want to push.
All right, Royal Oaks, as always, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
You bet.
NBC4 investigates back in court today in the case of pop singer David. Prosecutors have presented their first pieces of forensic evidence in the murder of 14-year-old Celeste Rivas Hernandez.
Investigative reporter Eric Leonard joins us now live from downtown L.A. with that new information from inside the courtroom. Eric.
Hi, Kathy and Jonathan. Well, both of these scientists who work at the LAPD crime lab called criminalists have testified about the techniques they used to search for blood inside the Tesla sedan where Celeste Rivas Hernandez's body was found, also inside the Hollywood Hills home where detectives believe Celeste was murdered. Both of the scientists described searching for bloodstains and using chemicals to test and visualize what could be evidence. The first one described examining the car using chemical treatments to make potential bloodstains glow and finding 2 of them in the rear trunk of the Tesla, later matched to Celeste's DNA. The second described the search of the garage of the home in the Hollywood Hills where indications of blood were found on rubber floor mats, under mats, on a tarp, and under an inflatable kids pool. Earlier, prosecutors focused on the alleged financial motive for the murder. A business executive from Interscope Records testified that David Burke, performed as David, might have earned $19 million from his record deal. But the deal was terminated last year after Celeste was found dead. That was after Burke had completed only the first 2 of 4 albums. Prosecutors say had Celeste gone public with accusations Burke was having a sexual relationship with a child, it would have ended his career. Also, we heard from a CHP officer who described a Caltrans worker's discovery of finding Celeste's passport ID card off a highway in Santa Barbara. Prosecutors say Tesla tracking data shows Burke had driven there several times around the time of Celeste's disappearance, and it's suspected he went there to dispose of evidence. Now, as for the millions of dollars that David Burke was earning from his record deal, potentially up to $19 million had he completed the third and fourth album, we heard from the attorney representing Celeste Rivas Hernandez's family. He spoke outside court a few minutes ago and said he too was surprised by those numbers.
That was a bit of a jaw drop for the family. They told me outside in the courtroom that they were shocked how much money that young man was earning, and his potential to earn millions was kind of hard to hear. You know that these musicians make a lot of money, but he was just kind of getting his career started.
So we'll be back here tomorrow. We expect more testimony from the crime lab, this time on the DNA, the serology testing on those things that were found in the car and the home. Also expect to hear from an LAPD detective who looked into this sexual abuse of Celeste allegedly at the hands of the singer David Burke. Live at criminal courts in downtown LA, I'm investigative reporter Eric Leonard, NBC4 News. Back to you.
Our top story, day 3 in David's murder case. New forensic evidence was submitted as the singer returned to court. Good evening. I'm Kathy Vara.
And I'm Annabelle Sedano. Michael and Colleen are off. There was more graphic testimony, and we want to warn you, it is hard to hear. Our investigative reporter Eric Leonard has been in court all day. He joins us live from downtown LA. Eric, so let's talk about those two pieces of evidence.
Yeah, there's really two major components of the forensics that prosecutors are presenting in this preliminary hearing. Again, to show the judge there is enough evidence here to go to a jury trial sometime in the future. The first had to do with tiny bits of plastic that the medical examiner recovered during the autopsy. Little bits of blue fragments, some of them less than half a centimeter long, that an LAPD analyst was able to compare under a microscope with a blue inflatable plastic pool that was found in the Hollywood Hills home where David Burke, the singer David, was living. The theory being that is where Celeste Rivas Hernandez was murdered, and this microscopic comparison showed at least 3 of those pieces fit together like puzzle pieces, appearing to confirm that, in fact, she was the victim of a crime inside that house, inside the garage. Later, we heard from an LAPD DNA analyst who talked about swabs that were taken, again, inside that house, also in the Tesla sedan that belonged to the singer. Those were submitted for DNA testing. They were able to get profiles from those swabs, and many of them matched irrefutably to Celeste Rivas Hernandez, meaning her DNA was in the trunk, not the front trunk, the back trunk of that Tesla, and then also in the garage of that home, again, where detectives believe she may have been murdered.
Hearing's going for?
Well, it feels like we're in the home stretch here. The medical examiner took the witness stand just in the last couple of minutes of the hearing today, began to describe what was found during the examination of her remains. We'll hear more of that tomorrow. It sounds like there's another important witness, an LAPD detective who investigated the illegal sexual relationship alleged between Celeste Rivas and David Burke. We're expecting to hear from him, and then this may wrap up. The judge will make a decision about whether or not there's enough evidence for the case to move along.
All right, investigative reporter Eric Leonard, thank you so much.
A medical examiner was back on the stand in the hearing involving singer David. Prosecutors are hoping autopsy photos will help their murder case and send it to trial. NBC4 investigative reporter Eric Leonard was the first to break the story. He's been in the courtroom all week. He joins us live from downtown LA with the new testimony. Eric.
Hi, Annabelle. The pictures that were shown in court today, nothing short of nightmarish. They showed the examination of Celeste Rivas Hernandez's remains at the LA County Department of Medical Examiner. The pathologist testifying today about how he figured out how she died and the limitations on his conclusions because of the terrible, terrible condition of her remains. Later in the day, we heard from an LAPD detective. He described some explicit sexual images that were allegedly found on the singer David Burke's iPhone. This is all to try to establish one of the other charges in the case. In addition to murder, there's also a count alleging the continuous sexual abuse of a minor. Police and prosecutors say those images, along with a number of other text messages that were read in court today, establish all of that. We'll be back in court on Monday. The detective will be back on the stand. Then it will be up to the judge to decide whether this case moves along to a jury trial. Back to you.